Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to an episode of the Corner Office here. We got a little home setup, both of us out of our dorm rooms on spring break here, so we're back in the normal room setup that we would normally have if we started filming these, from the houses. I mean, he's in his room, I'm in my room, and it's good to be back, right? It's good to be back.
It is good to be back. We've actually filmed dozens of episodes, more so than actually in the dorm in these setups, but you never saw it because for the first year we never had video. But
so the drop
this
back
is what
is a little different, but
yours is a lot more exciting than mine is. Mine's pretty plain.
But yeah, I mean, so we're excited to be back in the studio, and it's been a very eventful 48 hours in both.
Oh, for sure it has.
The basketball scene and the NFL scene. We're going to start with a little bit of NFL, and then we're going to work our way into some more basketball stuff later on in the episode. But NFL free agency has really been blowing up in these past couple of days here. And I just wanted to get your take as a whole as to, is this one of the most eventful NFL free agencies we've seen in the past 10 years? Because to me, it really feels like it. Maybe there's just, maybe there's this type of movement all the time and I just haven't been paying attention. But the big name players moving from team to team this year feels a bit unorthodox to me.
So in just the short answer to your original question, has this been one of the more eventful free agencies in the past 10 years? Yes, it has. But more so, I think that in just a historical perspective, this has been one of the most unexpected NFL free agencies because a lot of guys have been cut, a lot of guys have been moved that we didn't necessarily see coming.
Yep.
And so I think that, yes, it's been one of the more eventful in the past 10 years, but also, yes, it's been one of the more unexpected in the past 30.
I agree. I think the position group that everybody's kind of focusing on right now is the running back position, and just the amount of movement that has happened within that one position group over the past couple of days. So I just wanted to get your take on if you think some of these signings are good, and we can run through all of them if you want, or you can just, start ripping them. But there has been massive changes to the backfield in multiple in multiple teams in multiple areas. And I want to know what your thoughts are on those going forward. Do you want some names or you want to just
we'll get into names in a second, but I find it really strange that this year the NFL running back free agency market's so high after all the discourse that came last summer around running backs not getting re-signed. And we saw guys like Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott take less money because they were older running backs, but here the same age guys 1 season later are getting these gigantic deals with teams that they've never played on before. So that to me stuck out and was a little bit strange. But yes, going down the list, some of these signings are great. Some of them are not so great, and a lot of them are really unexpected. The NFL backfield as a whole in its totality is going to be a completely different landscape than it has been in past seasons.
All right.
Looking down this list, I feel like it's full of guys that we've seen play on the same team and be, their centerpiece of their team for so long that it's going to be really strange seeing them in new colors.
I agree. I think the one that jumps out to me first, if we're going to just run through some of the big names that have moved at the running back position, is Saquon Barkley. A guy that you thought the New York Giants were going to give the franchise tag to. Instead, they gave $168 million to Daniel Jones, who they might cut. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
There's a possibility that Daniel Jones is not a quarterback in the NFL next year, and he's making over $100 million, which is insane to me. To start. So you don't franchise tag Saquon Barkley. He goes out in free agency. He gets a 3-year, $37.5 million deal with the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, does this move the needle for them? Does this get them back into that championship contending level? Because last year, we had them there early, and then they slowly fell off a little bit as the year progressed. I think that having him and Justin Fields in that dual threat action backfield is kind of amazing.
Hurts.
Just because, Jalen Hurts, yeah. Having the two of them is going to give them a lot of options, in the backfield as to if they want, you know what I mean? So that dual action is going to be big. And I personally love the signing for the Eagles. And as someone who is looking at that from a Giants perspective, I'm I don't know how you let a guy like Saquon Barkley walk out your door.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the Giants franchise proving again that they literally have no idea how to build a roster. And
Yep.
Saquon Barkley is a guy that you don't get very often. He's a generational talent that you're supposed to keep on your team for as long as possible. And now he signs with your in-division rivals, who are
Correct.
most assuredly going to pound you paws twice next year.
Yep.
And yes, in essence, it does move the needle for the Philadelphia Eagles. I love DeAndre Swift, but there is no arguing that a healthy Saquon Barkley wipes the floor with him. Now the Philadelphia Eagles are, again, yes, the split option between Jalen Hurts being a run-pass threat. Absolutely. They still have two world-class receivers. They still have a top, I'm not going to say 5, top 10, in my opinion, tight end in the league in Dallas Goedert.
Yep. I mean, their O-line is getting worse because Jason Kelce is retired. And I think that's a big play for the. I mean, the center position is hard to, if you have a great center, you're probably a good offensive line.
We've seen Saquon Barkley put up these numbers with an offensive line that was bottom third of the league every season.
Yep.
They still have Lane Johnson. They still have Landon Dickerson. They're going to be fine.
Right.
Of course, it's going to take a step back, but the Eagles have draft picks. Maybe that's the direction that they decide to go in terms of replacing Jason Kelce. And there's still a ton of offensive linemen in the free agent market. And so, yeah, I do think that this moves the needle for the Eagles.
Okay. You mentioned DeAndre Swift there. I want to get your take on him as well. I actually didn't know he was a free agent this year, which
yes, he signed on a 1 year.
Is strange to me. So he has signed now a 3-year contract with the Chicago Bears, 3-year, $24 million deal with the Chicago Bears. So now you have that same dual threat action with Justin Fields, which is why I was getting ahead of myself.
Hypothetically, if Justin Fields stays with the Bears,
it's a good point.
If not, and they decide to go in the direction of drafting a quarterback, yes, you're right. It's the same style of offense because any of those first couple guys are going to be those dual threat quarterbacks that you're looking for. So DeAndre Swift, a guy who has now played in a system like that for a season, I think that he'll come in. I think he'll put up good numbers. I thought this was a really good signing for the Bears.
Okay.
And it was an unexpected one. I didn't think the Bears would go out and make a move like that, but they did, and it's a statement move to me.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that I wanted to ask you about the DeAndre Swift move was because on the internet people don't seem to like it, and I don't really understand why that is. You don't have a definitive RB1 in Chicago right now that he's going to be taking snaps away from. He just had a really good season with the Philadelphia Eagles, aside from the fact that he wasn't scoring touchdowns because they were doing the tush push. And that was he would get them down to the 1-yard line and then he wouldn't get the touchdown because Jalen Hurts would run it in from a yard. But I just don't understand the rationale that he's not somebody to invest in, especially for $24 million isn't a ton. You know what I mean? It's not like you're giving an arm and a leg to a running back, which I understand. The position is not a sustainable position. But I didn't really get why people didn't think this trade was this signing was a good one for the Bears.
Yeah, I agree with you. DeAndre Swift is a guy that I would have thrown as much. Literally, if I was in the front office of the Patriots, I would have handed him a blank check and said, "How much do you want?" And 3 years, $24 million for a guy who's 25 years old, still has at least another contract if he can continue to produce at the level that he has been.
I think he can still be relevant for 3 to 5 more years in the NFL.
He is a guy that can make something out of nothing, and
I agree.
That's why I think that this was such a good move for the Bears. And I'm actually a little jealous. I would say that he is my favorite running back in the NFL, personally, which I hated to admit when he was on the Eagles, but now that he's on the Bears, I will fully get behind. Big DeAndre Swift fan.
Okay.
No, not who?
No, I was gonna say not as bad. You don't hate him now because he's not on the Eagles. Is what I was trying to get to.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So you mentioned the Patriots there. They also signed a running back. They signed Antonio Gibson away from the Washington Commanders. Do you think this makes the Patriots offense a little bit more dynamic for this rookie quarterback that we assume is going to be coming in from the NFL draft? Or do you really not see this as changing much in New England? Because, we still have Ramondre. Look, Patriots football isn't really known for its running backs. We kind of make them. Like LeGarrette Blount was a really big one year. James White, like these. So like I wouldn't say that like we're a running back heavy offense. You know what I mean? But like maybe a guy like Antonio Gibson can see his touches go up this year with the New England Patriots. I don't know.
So the Patriots have over $100 million in cap space.
Yep.
And they haven't done a thing. They've signed Antonio Gibson, and they've signed a linebacker. And I think that we're going to get into that maybe a little bit later.
Okay.
But in terms of just this move, I don't think that the Patriots front office is doing enough right now. I think that Antonio Gibson is a fantastic signing for the New England Patriots. Mainly because last year in Washington, we saw him be a great, serviceable third down back who can receive out of the backfield, who can rush if if his number gets called. And I think that he's going to be a great complement to Ramondre Stevenson. Now, if we look at last season, we saw the Patriots had, yes, two great running backs, but they more or less had the same archetype. And that is like a power back who was a first and second down guy who would go out there and run someone over and pick up, 4 or 5 yards on first down. But they weren't great receiving backs. Now, Antonio Gibson is very dynamic, and yeah, he hasn't been one of the best running backs in the league since the COVID year when, they went on that run with Taylor Heineke. But he's still, in my opinion, one of the best third down backs in the league in terms of just doing his job. So, yes, I think this was a great pickup that adds another fold to our offense.
Gotcha. We're not even halfway done with the running backs, which is the amazing part of this entire free agency thing. First things first, when it comes to that, Aaron Jones was released by the Green Bay Packers. And in return for Aaron Jones, they signed Josh Jacobs away from the Las Vegas Raiders on a 4-year, $48 million contract. $12.5 million of those are guaranteed. Do you think this is a good move for this Packers team to drop a guy that's been in their offense for a number of years now in exchange for another back that they basically have the same production? Or do you think that they should have stuck with Aaron Jones, even though he was battling injury trouble last season?
Yeah, so I think the answer to your question is yes. It was a great move for the Green Bay Packers. Josh Jacobs is not a guy like he's one of those guys who, when he is fully healthy and doing his job in the backfield, he is a top 5 running back in the league. And I think that they got him at a steal for $12 million a year.
Okay.
However, it does really suck to see a guy like Aaron Jones go. It's just unfortunate. Yes, I think it was the move long term.
The right move.
But a guy who has been in your system throughout many iterations of your team. What's this? His 6th season there now? And just to let him walk to a division rival in the Minnesota Vikings. He was very unfortunate to see.
He signed with the Vikings on a 1-year, $7 million deal. You think this is a good move for the Vikings as well? I think it's a good move for the Vikings. You get a veteran running back who has battled some injury trouble, but has always been productive when he's on the field.
Yeah, I think that last year they proved that Alexander Mattison was not the guy. They brought in a rookie. He did pretty well as that RB2, but
agreed.
Yeah, I think that getting Aaron Jones at a heavy discount after being released was a good move for the Minnesota Vikings.
All right. Possibly the biggest signing of all comes from the Baltimore Ravens, a team looking to bolster their offense even more with that same dual threat that we were talking about with Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts. We have Derrick Henry, one of the most powerful backs in the league, a guy that has been fantastic, over 1,000 yards, and I think his past 5 or 6 seasons in the NFL. Signing away from the Tennessee Titans to the Baltimore Ravens on a 2-year, $16 million contract. I think this is a steal for the Ravens. I mean, Derrick Henry, even though he is getting older and he's getting to the end of his productive years as a running back, is still somebody who has put up great numbers. And I think that if he can stay away and stay out of injury, he can be a really good running back for this Baltimore Ravens squad.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is a chance to potentially rejuvenate his career. He has been floundering in Tennessee for the past few years, as everyone does when they go there. But I think that this is a chance for him to, go out there, be on, in my opinion, what looks like the best team coming out of the AFC They're retaining basically everyone. Zay Flowers is going into his sophomore season. Mark Andrews is locked up
Yep.
long-term. Lamar Jackson's locked up
Yep.
long-term. Now they add, at one time, the best running back in the league.
Well, he had the second most rushing yards last season.
Right. Like, he is going to be just another layer to this offense. And yes, the Ravens historically have had great backfields from, I hate to say it, but Ray Rice to, all through all iterations of the Ravens teams up to modern day, where they had Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, who has had one of the more unfortunate career paths that we've seen.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that this Ravens offense is built for him. And I think that he's going to see a lot of production. I think that Lamar's going to see a lot of production. And I think that they're going to be hard to stop next year.
Okay. I just got two more for you here. One of them is coming out of the Washington Commanders. They signed Austin Eckler to a 2-year, $11 million contract. Austin Eckler saw a massive decline in his production last year with the LA Chargers. Nothing really went right with LA last year. They were a big disappointment, I think, in the NFL. And getting a new coach in Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh?
Yes, Jim.
Okay. And Jim Harbaugh may rejuvenate their offense a little bit, but Austin Eckler won't be there to see it. He seemed like he was taking a step back. And I was just wondering if you think he'll be able to rejuvenate his career in Washington, or if he's going to, go down the inevitable path of all NFL running backs and start to lose a step.
Yeah, I think that we saw Austin Eckler lose a step last season. He had production. He had, all the tools in front of him to go out there and have a productive season. And we just didn't really see it, which was the case with most of the Chargers. The Chargers are their own story right now. Jim Harbaugh's been handed an absolute dumpster fire and been told to turn it into gold, which is almost impossible in this league. But back to the topic at hand, Austin Eckler signing with the Commanders. I think that he'll get a lot of action with the rookie quarterback that they decide to go with that second overall pick. However, I don't think that this will rejuvenate his career in any way, and I see it being kind of like a last couple of years home to get a big payday before you retire for good.
Fair enough. And the final one that just happened a couple hours ago in the running back carousel that has been this free agency is Joe Mixon has been traded to the to the Houston Texans for a 7th round pick. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think it's a big contract thing. The Bengals are seemingly heading in a different direction, which is unbeknownst to me. I don't know why they would ever move on from that core that got them to a Super Bowl, because they still have life left in them. But
agreed.
Joe Mixon, entering his 8th season, I believe, will be a very complimentary piece to CJ Stroud and that entire Houston Texans offense. Love that move. I would give it an A if I was grading it. More so because you're getting him on a discount. All you had to give up was the 7th round pick, and now you're getting rid of the one true insecurity in your offense in Devin Singletary and that running back game. I think that this is going to take them to that next step from being, a sliding into that winning the AFC South in Week 18 team to solidly having control of that division.
Agreed.
One last shout out I will give. Quick take. Tony Pollard signed with the Titans. I think he's overrated.
Yes. I forgot about Tony
Pollard. I think that we'll start to see his production downfall. I don't think that he will stick around for all 3 seasons, but then again, we will see.
Okay. The only other major signing in NFL free agency that I want to bring up to you is not from the running back position. It's actually from the quarterback position. And that is Kirk Cousins signing to the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I think I want to bring this up to you for 2 reasons. One is that I want to see what your thoughts are on who the Minnesota Vikings should sign to replace him, because ultimately you have the best receiver in the league in Justin Jefferson, and you need someone to throw him the ball. And 2, does this make the Atlanta Falcons offense like a contending offense? You add a guy who is a top 10 to 15 quarterback in the league last year before he got hurt. On top of that, you give him Bijan Robinson to hand the ball off, and you can throw to Jake London and Kyle Pitts. Like, it seems like their offense is kind of coming together a little bit. So I'm wondering why you think he got traded, or did he? I think he just signed. Never mind.
He was a free agent.
He was a free agent. So why the Minnesota Vikings let him walk, and does this make this Atlanta team a lot more dangerous?
Yeah, so To answer your first question, Minnesota Vikings let him walk because they're a young team and they seemingly are in that stage where they're getting their pieces together in order to make an actual core. And that's 4 or 5 years down the road. So, again,
so you think
don't
Justin
blame Kirk for
Jefferson is
wanting
going to
out.
wait? You think Justin Jefferson is going to wait
I
4 or
think they're going
5
to lock
years?
him up. I think they're going to lock him up.
Okay.
Kirk Cousins signing with the Falcons is a very strange move. Did not see that one coming. The Atlanta Falcons have a very young core with Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson. And now they're adding Kirk Cousins, a guy who can, spin the ball, but isn't going to be around if you're planning on having this big run of domination. So, I thought it was a little strange, but then I started to think about it, and they haven't had a real quarterback that they can build their offense around. And we know that they have the tools. Kyle Pitts is the best tight end prospect in the history of football. Drake London had a generational season in USC, went in the top 10 picks, I believe. And then you add a guy like Bijan Robinson, who showed as a rookie that he can produce on the highest level, even with a bad quarterback in both receiving and rushing. I think this is a big season for Bijan. I think he'll break out both receiving and rushing. We could see him go over 1,500 scrimmage yards this year.
They also have a new coach who will probably be handing him the ball more. The
Arthur
issue
Smith?
What?
I thought they kept their coach.
No, they didn't. They fired him. They fired Smith. So he's gone. Which means, and one of the major issues with that Atlanta Falcons offense last year was the fact that he wasn't getting the ball as much as he should have, and they were giving the ball to a guy like Desmond Ridder, who wasn't a great quarterback, and new GM, I think, too, in Atlanta. And they've seemingly put some pieces together here. So, I mean, looking to the future, I think this Atlanta team could be pretty good down the line if they continue to put pieces together.
Yeah, agreed. I really like this move. Some more moves that I'm just going to run over real quick. Baker Mayfield signed with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Tampa Bay Bucks paid him a ton of money.
Good.
Strange, but good for Baker. I think that's the right move. I don't know what direction the Bucks are heading, and I think they'll hover at that wild card area team for the next couple of years, but so be it. Russell Wilson signed with the Steelers after being dropped by the Broncos. Didn't think he'd go to the Steelers, but it honestly isn't crazy to see this one coming. I think he'll slide into that starter role, and the Steelers will maybe make out with another 9-8 season.
Okay.
That seems to be... Oh, I'm sorry. Going back to your Kirk Cousins point, the Vikings replaced him with Sam Darnold. They paid him a 1-year contract. Seems to be that they're throwing this season away and are going to try and get a quarterback in next year's draft, unless they make a big move.
Okay.
Receivers, nothing crazy happened. Pittman signed with the Colts, re-signed with the Colts. Evans re-signed with the Bucks. T. Higgins got franchise tagged, but then asked for a trade. So that is something interesting that we're going to have to keep our eyes on. Another thing to keep our eyes on. The Patriots have been rumored to try and make a stab at Calvin Ridley. Again, it would take a huge deal, but the Patriots have the money. I wouldn't be surprised. Calvin Ridley did say that he would like to stay in Jacksonville first, but that truly means nothing in the NFL. We could definitely see the Patriots ending up with Calvin Ridley as their wide receiver 1 this season. Okay. Darnell Mooney signed with the Falcons, another piece to go along with Kirk. Marquise Brown's still on the free agent list, so he could end up, in Patriot Blue. We don't know. Gabe Davis signed with the Jaguars. That's a good pickup for me. But then there's a lot of guys who are still, those wide receiver 3s that haven't signed with teams yet and are looking to, fill in that veteran role. And that's OBJ, Tyler Boyd, DJ Chark, Michael Thomas, KJ Osborne, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, the Donovan Peoples-Jones, Mac Hollins. There's still a bunch of guys out there that haven't found teams yet, and I think that they will by the end of this week. Okay. Tight ends, again, nothing really happened. It seems to be a pretty mundane free agency market, aside for the big offensive pieces.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for enlightening me on some of the things that you think about when it comes to the NFL. I don't know nearly as much as Jack. He's definitely got a bit more knowledge when it comes to the NFL landscape. And as more moves come into the news here, we're going to continue to update you guys. It seems like it's going to be a very big year in NFL free agency, and we're just excited to see what the Patriots decide to do with their pick in the draft and if they can make a big signing with the amount of money that they have.
Yeah, and hopefully they get active. Thank you for those kind words. I may know more about football than you, but something that you know more about than me is the college basketball scene. And it's March, and everyone knows what that means. The madness is about to begin. But before the madness can begin, we have to figure out everything going on with the conference tournaments, which will then align the bracket. And that starts this week for all the major conferences. So, Alex, I'm going to run through. I think we agreed on 5 conferences. That is Big 10, Big 12, ACC, Big East. I think it was only 4.
And SEC.
SEC. Okay. I'm going to run through those. I'm just going to ask you to give me your pick as to who wins the championship and goes on to, win that better seeding in the championship or in the big dance. So,
okay.
I think
do you have one that you're going to start with?
Conference. Yeah, I think it's appropriate to start in our home conference. That is with the ACC and what, in my opinion, seems to be shaking out with the same old rivalry that we've seen time and time again. But again, give me your take on who will walk away with the ACC tournament championship.
Yeah, so I do think you're right on the money there when you say that this is going to be a Duke UNC final again. And I mean, I think that the only teams that I can see really making a run in this whole thing is probably Syracuse. They have a pretty easy side of the bracket. They get the winner of NC State and Louisville, which was NC State. I watched the game today. It was a pretty awesome game for most of it. NC State kind of broke away at the end there. But if they can if Syracuse can beat NC State and then beat Duke in the second round, which is very possible the way that Duke has been playing, I think that they have a pretty good run being the 7 seed to get to that final in that championship game. But that being said, I don't think anybody's really expecting there to be very many upsets. This should shake out to be UNC at the top of the bracket, Duke at the bottom of the bracket, and I don't see this game shaking out any differently than the first 2 have. I think that UNC will walk away with the win in the ACC tournament this year. I just think they're built better. They have more experienced pieces. They have better players. They have the ACC Player of the Year in RJ Davis, and their experience and the amount of 5th years that they have on this team and graduate seniors, I think, is going to take them over the hump, even though we wish that Duke would get another win here.
Yeah, it is hard to argue with that, as much as obviously I would like to say that I think that Duke will pull this one out. Having watched them not only in the 2 games that they've gone against each other, but just outside of those games in different, conference play matchups, UNC just looks better. They are more experienced. Half of their lineup is 25 years old. And our lineup is full of 18-year-olds. Alex, that's like if you and I was angry about the game, and I said this to my mom last week, and I was like, Alex, it's like if you and I played against 7th graders. We would kill them.
Yeah.
They're more, and that argument doesn't pertain to the NCAA basketball, obviously. But the point remains that they are much more experienced. And in some cases, much more talented.
Yeah, they have a lot of talented pieces. A lot of talented pieces on that team. So I don't see any team in the ACC. The only team that I can think to beat them would be Duke. But the only team that I think is a championship contender this year for the national championship is UNC out of the ACC. But that being said, teams that need to get must wins in this tournament or in this side of the tournament would be Virginia. Because they're on the bubble right now. So maybe a team like Virginia or a team like Wake Forest gets a win and that gets them into March Madness. But I don't see either of those teams having enough to get over the hump of UNC. So I'm picking UNC to win the ACC.
All right, let's move on. I'm going to go with Big Ten next.
All right, the Big Ten. This is a very interesting conference as well for a couple of reasons. The first and foremost is that everybody is expecting Purdue to win this whole thing. I think there are multiple teams in the Big Ten that are going to be tournament teams. Purdue will be a tournament team. Illinois will be a tournament team. Nebraska, Northwestern, Wisconsin are already in my opinion. I think teams like Indiana and Michigan State have a case to be in, and a team like Iowa may sneak in at the end of the rotation there, even though they have a couple less quad one wins if they can get a win in the tournament here. That being said, I again think that this is going to be down to the top 2 seeds in each bracket. I think that it'll be a Purdue-Illinois final here, and I think that Purdue will win again. They won last year. They have who I think is the National Player of the Year this year in Zach Edey returning to their roster. And although Illinois has some really good pieces, Terrence Shannon Jr. has played great. Coleman Hawkins has been really good. I just don't see them having enough to get over the hump and beat Purdue, which they haven't been able to do this year. That being said, some sleepers in this division. Indiana has looked fantastic. Kel'el Ware is really coming into his own in the past couple of games here. And this Michigan State team, even though they have not played well all season, is not one that I think you can sleep on, especially if they get a big win over Minnesota, which I'm expecting them to do tomorrow night. That being said, I do think Purdue is the heavy favorite to win this tournament, and I do think they will.
All right. Next conference, no arguments here. I think that they're going to wipe the floor with that tournament.
Okay.
Big 12.
Big 12. Interesting conference this year. You have two of the best defenses in all of the NCAA at the top of the table. You have Houston and Iowa State, and then below them you have two of the most explosive offenses when everybody is healthy. That being Baylor and Kansas. Kansas is the 6th seed, which is amazing to me. They're going to be in the tournament. They've had a really big down year this year. Hunter Dickinson dislocated his shoulder. Hopefully he'll be able to play for round 1. I actually don't know that off the top of my head, but this is another conference that's going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams in March Madness this year.
They have 9.
They have 9, you think?
They have 9
you think
slots.
Texas...
I saw it on ESPN today.
Okay. So
Big
9
of
these
gets 9
teams,
slots.
9 of these teams are going to be in March Madness with at-large bids, which is a bit insane if you really think about it. Houston has been the best team in college basketball all year, and although I think Purdue is better than them because of Zach Edey, Jamal Shead has been fantastic offensively and defensively. Their defense is suffocating. I think if they're going to have home court, which they will as the number 1 seed, they're going to be unstoppable. Now, that being said, I have picked all 1 seeds thus far, and I'm sorry to do that because, it's a bit disappointing. Like, you don't want to see all 1 seeds win the conference tournaments, but I think that this year Houston is going to win.
I think that typically, I'm sorry for interrupting, I think that typically we do see the 1 seeds fare better in the conference tournaments than we do in the big dance.
I agree.
I agree with you.
So I'm taking.
I think that Houston. Sorry, I'm sorry, I interrupted again.
No, you're good. I just think that Houston has the most suffocating defense in all of college sports, like in all of college basketball right now. I mean, Ken Palm has them ranked super high. They're the number 1 team in the entire in the country. And although I think that there are teams that can beat this Houston team, they've lost 3 games already, but that's not a lot. I just think that they're built to win the Big 12 this year in their first year in it.
Yeah, I think that the question regarding Houston in the past seasons has been, was the American Conference really all that good?
Yep.
That seemed to be the excuse for them being a top-seeded team every season, and now they move into the Big Ten, and in their first season go out and be the number 1 country in the team, and really don't have a crazy bad loss on their schedule. So,
I agree.
Kudos to Houston. Moving on, let's talk about the Big East.
Big East. This will be the most interesting conference tournament for a couple of reasons. Again, this is another conference where you have a lot of teams who are vying for bids. UConn is already in the dance. Creighton's already in the dance. Marquette's already in the dance. Seton Hall's already in the dance. But that being said, teams like St. John's, Providence, and Villanova are still somehow on the bubble. I could see this Villanova team making a run. They have a decently easy schedule to get through in order to get to the final. But that being said, I think that most people have this being a battle between UConn and Marquette at the top of the division. Marquette returning Tyler Kolek for this will be a really big deal. He's been fantastic all year. He's a top 5 player in. He's a top 5 in the Cousy Award rankings this year, which is for the best point guard in all of college basketball. He won it last year. He won Big East Player of the Year last year. And although I don't see him winning either of those things again this year, I don't think. I think that they are probably a better team than Creighton is overall. But ultimately, I just think that this UConn team at home is too dominant to lose to anybody in this entire tournament. They're the best team in the Big East. They're fantastic in conference. They're 18-2. They have a 28-3 overall record, and they've looked like a freight train this entire year thus far. I don't see any team stopping them. And again, I'm going to have to take the number 1 overall seed to win the Big East.
They did have a slip up to. They just lost. They lost a big game last week or the week before. They lost by 30. UConn did.
Yeah, but they lost away from home. They don't lose like that at home. And they'll be home for the entire tournament.
But it's a neutral site for the tournament.
Yeah, they don't lose in neutral sites either.
Okay. All right. As long as they don't have to go on the road and play against road fans,
Correct.
you're saying.
If they're not going to play against road fans, I think that they're the dominant
And we
favorite.
have talked about this before. So let's wrap it up here. Talk to me about the Southeastern Conference.
The SEC is going to be another one of those conferences that's really interesting. I think that you have Tennessee in the tournament already, South Carolina in the tournament already, Auburn in the tournament, UK in the tournament, Alabama and Florida are probably all tournament teams right now. You can take a look at Texas A&M and possibly LSU getting in if they get a win during this entire conference tournament. That being said, the top of the SEC is not set. Every single team in the top 4 has beat each other this year. Tennessee has lost to UK. UK has lost to Tennessee. South Carolina has beat Kentucky. Kentucky has beat Auburn. Auburn has beat Alabama. Everybody's beat Alabama, it feels like, in the top 5. But that being said, the team that's clicking on all cylinders for me right now is the Kentucky Wildcats. They have not lost a game since February 21st, and that was their first loss. Since February 21st, since February 6th, they are okay. They've lost more games than I was expecting them to. But that being said, they beat a really good Tennessee team on the road, and they are the most explosive offense in all of college basketball. Although they can't get stops, I think that this offense is dynamic enough to get them through this entire tournament and win them games. And as of the past couple of weeks, they've really started to click on all cylinders. And they have massive wins over Alabama and Tennessee in the past 2 weeks. So I think that those games are going to carry them through this tournament. Taking Kentucky.
Yeah, personally, I like Tennessee. I like how Dalton Knecht has been playing lately. He's had multiple 40-point games, but yeah, they are a little one-dimensional. So I could see a reality where any of those top 5 teams walk away with it. I know you said that you thought the Big East would be the most competitive. I think the SEC will be the most competitive tournament.
Okay.
So keep an eye out for that. But just to recap, ACC North Carolina, you have winning.
Yep.
Big 10, you have Purdue. Big 12, you have Houston. Big East, you have UConn. And for the SEC, you have the Kentucky Wildcats.
That is true.
All right. Well, that will wrap up our conference tournament preview.
Sounds good.
Alex, I believe we have one last segment before the end of the episode.
Yeah. You want to tease it or you want me to?
Go for it.
All right. So we've been doing these little ranking games for a little while, and I mean, I have been the one on the end of having to rank the players that we've been talking about. So right now we're going to do something that's out there for the fans here to see Jack's ball knowledge and see if he can blind rank as well as I can. And I'm going to ask him to rank some of the Celtics legends of the past 100 years, past century. So every single player on this list has their jersey retired by the Boston Celtics to make it a little bit easier for him. It's not just people, it's all these guys are Hall of Famers as well. Some of them Hall of Famers as players and as coaches. And it's not going to be an easy list for Jack because there are so many players on here and in Boston Celtics history that are just fantastic players. So without further ado, I think we're just going to get right into it. And you're going to be ranking them blindly, 1 being the best to 5 being the worst. Just like we did the last time on Reels. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool. The first guy that I'm going to ask you about here is known to be the voice of the Boston Celtics. I'm giving you Tommy Heinsohn.
Tommy Heinsohn played for 9 seasons. I think it was maybe it was 11 seasons. I think he played from 57 to 68. Won 8 or 9 titles, if not more. Never won an MVP, only was an All-Star 3 or 4 times. But then you have to take into account the fact that he has been the voice of the Celtics for the past 35 years.
Yep.
Tommy Heinsohn, I think this is going to be a controversial take. I'm going to put him in that 3 spot. 3
spot. Okay. Number 3, Tommy Heinsohn. He was a 6-time NBA All-Star. Actually won Rookie of the Year, which is a little fun fact about him there. Okay, number 2 here, same basic era. I'm going to give you David Cowens.
I'm sorry, could you Dave Cowens?
Yeah. Did you not get that?
Lagged a little bit.
All right,
Dave
my bad.
Cowens. The fact that I can't tell you any of his career accolades, I know that he was a significant part of that team, but I know that he wasn't the 1, 2, or 3 option guy, or even 4 behind maybe Tom Heinsohn. I'm going to put him at number 5.
All right. Number 5 for Dave Cowens. That's interesting. Dave Cowens is actually one of the 3 Celtics who won the MVP award from that team with Bill Russell and Bob Cousy. It was him, Bob Cousy,
I thought Havlicek
and
was
Dave
the third.
Cowens. Nope, it was Dave Cowens actually, which is funny.
You're right.
But I will slide him into the 5 spot there for you. Coming in at number 3 here, we have Kevin McHale.
I think Kevin McHale fits nicely into that 4. He won a couple championships, but not as many as Tom Heinsohn. Yes, maybe career-wise he was a little bit better than Dave Cowens, or a little bit worse than Dave Cowens, I'm sorry, but I think that he complements that 4 slot nicely.
Okay, I don't disagree with that. I think that's a good placement for him. Number 4 here, we're going to give you Larry Bird.
Yeah, I think Larry Bird's just about as Boston Celtic as you can get, besides obviously but besides the guys playing now and Bill Russell, who won all those championships way back in the day. Larry Bird really breathed what it meant to be a Boston Celtic. He really was aggressive. He was, he had like a smug attitude about him. And those series with the Lakers are some of the best of all time. I know that maybe if you have Bill Russell coming at me number 5, it's going to throw me off my game for a little bit. But I think Larry Bird goes number 1.
Okay, and I think you're going to be happy with that pick, putting Larry Bird at number 1, because the 5th player that I have on this list is Paul Pierce.
Paul Pierce, another guy, followed right in that lineage of Celtics greats. I actually am looking at multiple pictures of him right now in my room, which is a little creepy to say, but
little creepy. Little
I digress. I digress. Paul Pierce fits into that too nicely. Only had 1 championship, but really is a Celtics legend.
Agreed. So to run through your list here, you have Larry Bird at 1, Paul Pierce at 2, Tommy Heinsohn at 3, Kevin McHale at 4, and Dave Cowens at 5. That wraps it up.
Yeah, that is the last segment of our episode.
That's
Ladies and gentlemen, we will be back with our regularly scheduled programming in our dorms after the end and conclusion of our spring break. But until then, it has been our pleasure to record for you. This has been the Corner Office. I am Jack Byrne.
And I'm Alex Penders. Corner 3.